Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Wow Wednesday. Dun, 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 dun. Happy Wednesday, everyone. I am Nancy Matthews, one of the founders of Women's Prosperity Network, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you, sharing your midweek boost of motivation, education, and inspiration to keep you consistently moving forward, feeling inspired and on track towards your vision and towards your goals for living the best life. And that's what it's all about. Today we have Tammy Workman Lopez with us, and she's going to be talking about how to spark your flame for 2023 and to remove anything that blocks you. This way you got a clear path to that dream life that you're building for 2023. Before we kick off with this morning's guest, let me give a couple of updates of what's happening in the wonderful world of Women's Prosperity Network, beginning with we're just coming off the tail end of our 2-day legendary Level Up workshop. And this was an opportunity for about 100 people to come together, cast their vision for 2023, and then begin to map out what we call an inspired action plan, not a drudgery of a plan, but an inspired plan where you get to consistently move forward. And if you missed it for some reason, keep an eye on this Facebook group as well as your email, because I'm going to be giving you bits and pieces of what we did during Level Up so that you can work through them one by one. And then we're going to come together and I'm going to support you in getting that done. So keep an eye on your email it's a 3-part process that I'm going to share with you so that you deserve to live the most amazing life. And even if your life is already amazing, how about a little bit more? That's what we're here for. So keep your eye on your email for that. Next Tuesday, December 20th, is the Women's Prosperity Network Networking with a Twist. So go to the events calendar and you can check that out. And then we've got the holidays coming. It's going to be so special. And today's guest is really the perfect timing for us to head into this holiday season full of spark and joy, taking action steps so that we can live our best lives. So welcome, Tammy Workman Lopez. That's a lot of names.
Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate this group and you ladies. I've been connected with you pretty much ever since I moved here, even before then. I love to continue to connect back and feel the support your group offers.
Beautiful, because we're all in this together, and you bring so much to our community and to all the individuals and companies and people that you serve. So I'm delighted that you're with us today. We're going to jump into the conversation in just a moment. First, I want to let you know a little bit about the mindset reset guru that we have with us today. So Tammy Workman Lopez is a wonderful author, speaker, powerful women networking director, and a national and international virtual anxiety relief and mindset reset coach for individuals, couples, families, and groups. She is passionate about coaching others and has been serving clients for 23 years. She's a certified hypnotist and wellness coach since 2015. She specializes in helping people identify and achieve their personal goals by coping with the issues that are causing them distress or anxiety. She takes great pride in the progress and success of her clients. Her mission is twofold. One is to help individuals find the freedom that's possible for them. Like, tap into that, my friends. Find the freedom that's possible, no matter what's getting in your way or where you may be feeling blocks. She wants to support you in getting that freedom that you desire and deserve. And then the second part is to help families stay together, creating connection, wellness, and thriving support. Keeping this possible, even if the family does separate, allows for healthier relationships to be built. And this part of her mission comes from a deep passion of being a child who wanted this for all the families that she encountered as a foster child, including her own. She now has tools that work and is here to share some of her greatest tips and strategies with us. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. And that is a mouthful.
You've got a lot of experience for sure.
You did great. I appreciate that. And I just want to acknowledge each of us as world changers. Each of us makes that change in our lives and with our families. And so that is why I do this work, because there's no ever a good time to have to do it alone. And I used to believe that I had to growing up. And when you don't have people who can support you, that is the truth. But now I take that, all of what I learned, I like to call it, it was my mess, and I like to call it now my message. And it truly is that message that I'm able to offer. And it really breaks down into various points. And so as you're learning these points and walking through these points, but knowing how to practice it is the biggest thing. Yeah. So the part that I like to do is help with decluttering the mind. And in that process, allowing to be able to see what's in the background that we can't see, what's in the forefront that we can see. We have this thing in our culture to be positive, always be positive, but we're kind of forgetting the negative that's there that needs to be decluttered out. It's like trying to decorate your home and make it pretty when there's no more room. And so the same thing works within your mind, your emotions, your spirit. As you clean that out, you've got room to bring in more.
I love that. It's like trying to decorate your home, but there's no more room because there's so much clutter. So that analogy about being positive and sharing good news and if you don't have space for that, there's also a bunch of clutter and mind chatter or negative thoughts or feelings mixed in there. I love that.
Yeah, 100%. And I like to use the analogy of you have a puppy and you put down the newspaper and it uses it. And then instead of cleaning it up, you put down brand new clean newspaper.
You're just covering it up. The crap's
yes. Yes. And we try to think that works. We truly believe, interestingly enough, we truly believe with our emotions and with this experience of just be positive, that really works. But the stink is still there and the mess is still there. But we haven't really been taught how to clean it up. We've actually been taught, leave it there. Don't deal with it. Avoid it.
Well, and I think I'm so glad we're having this conversation. You and I are aligned in needing to get rid of the pee and the crap on the floor first. Then
yeah.
Paper. So we're aligned in that. And I believe that in this culture of positivity, that it's number one, the messaging, don't pay attention to your negative emotions. Don't say those things. Don't feel those things. Like there's a culture that's been built around that. And then the second part of it is it's uncomfortable to face and deal with those negative emotions. So I'd rather just either self-medicate in some way or just cover it up, like you said. Can you speak to those points a little bit?
100%. And I actually have a couple freebies that I would like to offer to the ladies. And they're part of a couple links that I can share. I'm not sure how best to get them. But the idea is it breaks down. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's kind of like living with a broken arm is equally as uncomfortable as going in and getting it broken and reset and letting it heal. Going through that initial uncomfortable is going to help it feel so much better that you can actually talk yourself into, okay, I'm ready for this uncomfortable because I know I'm going to feel better afterwards, versus dealing with what you've always known and want to change and continuing to deal with that for the rest of your life instead. It's like continuing to deal with a broken arm that doesn't heal right because you chose not to go through that first bit of uncomfortable will leave you permanently uncomfortable.
Love it. Love it.
So when you... Yes.
And a short amount of being uncomfortable leads to it long-term freedom and pain-free.
Perfectly. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like what Laura was saying, ripping up the carpet and putting down hard wood so it's smooth, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, it's troublesome. It's a little difficult. And what I also do is I get clients clear on what do you believe is pain? Is pain bad? And not everybody has given birth, but when you give birth, pain is good. It lets you and the baby know and the body get ready to get the baby out. Otherwise, mom and the baby aren't going to go well. right? Pain around the body says this is where you need to focus and get healing. Pain is actually very good if we listen to it. Instead, we've been taught it's bad and do everything that you can do, like, take medication so you don't feel it. With emotions, eat or drink or smoke or get into a relationship or something so you don't have to pay attention and focus on that. But then it leaves you stuck with all of that newspaper on top of newspaper on top of newspaper. And it's just all of these things now. So when you have an experience right now, it seems so big because it's related to all those times in the past where it wasn't cleaned up, and it resonates. And people think, oh my gosh, I feel so overwhelmed, like I'm losing my mind. Well, if you felt every painful emotion that you've ever had of your whole life in one moment, it does feel like you're losing your mind.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So, number one, we're talking about emotions are not only good, as well as, the physical manifestation of some of this stuff, but they're actually a guidance speaking to us. Let's take a look at one of the other points you mentioned, how to notice when negative thinking is creating the emotion. And what's needed at that time, and so negative thinking triggers an emotion, which then can trigger the physical pain in the body as well. So
yes.
How we figure out where it's really coming from?
So the idea, a lot of people that I've worked with, and this included myself growing up as well, I didn't understand that what I was physically feeling actually related. And oftentimes, if you stay stuck in that negative feeling, it can make you literally sick. It can cause damage to particular parts of the body, or it can cause cellular dysfunction, right? So we can find ourselves having different ailments and diseases show up. And so good things to pay attention to is, where is always a nagging pain, that good pain we talked about? Where is that pain? Okay, it's in my neck, it's in my head. I'm always having headaches. My stomach is always upset. Whenever I think about that person, I get a shot of adrenaline. So it's being able to pay attention to where is it in your body. And when you're looking at what's the emotion, okay, so when I feel sad, what happens? So my throat tightens, my chest tightens, and you can begin to see where the body's holding it. And then also learning how to practice particular stretching or yoga or Pilates or working out. Each person's different. I'm not a weightlifting kind of person. But I'm definitely a yoga kind of person. So allowing yourself to stretch it out, breathing into it, forces your rib cage to open, forces the tension of the muscles that are locking down. So a lot of times people don't know that they have anxiety. They don't call it that, but it could be stress or overwhelm or exhausted all the time, or just ache in the body all the time. So they may not use the same words, but it's still showing up with the same results. And so listening. And sometimes people don't know how. So when I say, when you feel sad, okay, yeah, that's sad. Okay, where do you feel it in your body? Okay, so I feel, and then they start to pay attention. Where do you feel overwhelm? Okay, I feel that in my stomach. Where do you feel insecurity? I feel that in my head and in my jaw. So it's really walking through what's your body telling you. Some people feel stuff in their glutes and in their feet. Other clients never feel anything in their feet. It just, the sore day. So it's very different with each person, but learning how to listen. People say, oh, just listen to your body. If you don't know how, you can't. And if you don't know how to interpret it, it's not just going to happen.
Yeah. Years ago, my sister Susan, I was having like this terrible, terrible back pain. And we're going back probably 15, 16 years. And my sister Susan said, I was like, oh, my back is really hurting me. I was talking about it. And she's like, oh, is something holding you back, dear? So every time I feel a twinge in my back, I can't help it hear my sister Susan in my head. And it's a reminder to ask the questions of myself. If you have a pain in your body, well, is there something holding you back? Is there, something going on? I think another layer of it that you're bringing to the table that I love is, when you're feeling emotions, to ask, where is it in my body? Because it may not have, the connection may not happen consciously right away.
Correct. And secondarily or consecutively, asking yourself, what am I thinking about? And you'll see in the activity that I'm going to share with you is to be able, not be pretty, to be able to write down what it is that you're thinking. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh man, that was so stupid. I can't believe you did that, talking to yourself. Or, you're always messing this up. Why can't you get this figured out? You've been working on this forever. Whatever it sounds like, writing it down exactly the way it sounds, not be like, oh, well, I was just being upset with myself. Really be clear on the heaviness that we're using that we would never use with someone else.
It's again facing the pile of poop that's there, because that's what it is.
Yes. The issue is a lot of times you might like, this sounds silly, but let's say you've never cleaned up poop before. Never, ever. You just saw it. You don't even know what it is. And you're just like, what is that? And then somebody who doesn't know what it is, what do you usually do? You pick it up and you smell it. What is this? Why is this here? And so now you start to understand, oh, this is crap. I don't want this in my life.
Yeah.
But imagine that this experience, people don't know what it is. They don't even have a label for it yet. And so when we say clean it up or don't do that, don't do what? Well, this is all I know. This is what happens automatically. I can't just shut it off. I don't know how. And so when they begin to understand how to understand what your emotions mean, how to understand what thoughts are creating those emotions, or vice versa. Sometimes I have a feeling, but I don't know the thought. It happens so fast. It's all subconscious. I can't get my fingers on it. And so when we're able to break it down and pull all these things apart and actually walk someone through their own experience, then they can go, oh, that's the crap. That's the smell associated. Those are the words associated. Okay. So to clean that up now, what can I do to shift and replace it? We often have to know why it got there, especially for those of us like myself who are very analytical or who've been through a lot of trauma or pain. I have to know why. A lot of people, if you don't know why and you can just do the shift, that's perfect. But if you have to know why to feel safe to do the shift, then you have to go through the process of why. And a lot of times people just give you the advice or the instruction of, well, just do this, the positive, or just stop doing that. And for me, I like to say good advice without the how makes me want to choke out a fool. I'm not feeling very Christian. I'll just have to say.
When that occurs, yeah, that's that human part of it too. And I like, one of the things I picked up in there is, for some, knowing the how did this happen? Why did I behave that way? Where did this come from? Makes you feel safe, because that way, if something occurs similar in the future, you'll be able to recognize it for what it is. That was really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the big piece of what I emphasize for folks is not just reframing it. How did you do it? What was the steps that we took? What did you learn? Follow those steps again. You see how that worked. You see how, because a lot of times people think, oh man, that was so great. I don't know how I did that, but it was great. Okay, good. Let's look at how you did that. You did this and you did this and you did this and you did this. You see that? Yep. You see how you learned that and you implemented that? Yep. Okay, how can we do that again? Okay, so when it happens next time, I could do this and then they're just so excited because they see that they're getting it and they have these step-by-step tools that they can practice again. And it makes it a permanent resource, a permanent activity with permanent results, because they can keep doing it over and over again. And then, of course, they know that if they have something that they're stuck with and they just can't see it, they know just to reach out again and not feel ashamed or like, I got to do it all myself.
Mm-hmm. And I think today's society is ripe with people feeling overwhelmed, exhausted. And this is before the holidays even kicked in. Like, we are in such an attention demanding culture right now, world right now, that I know sometimes I feel constantly being pulled out. Like, this one wants me a ting, bing, bing, bing. Woo. Like, I don't know if you remember Bing, 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 Ricochet Rabbit from when we were kids. There was a cartoon and he was bouncing off the walls, going everywhere. Sometimes I can feel like that. And so what suggestions can you offer us for managing in this very, very high demand attention world that we're living in? Do you have some suggestions to help us not succumb to feeling exhausted and overwhelmed by all of that input?
Yes. There's actually the emotions list that I'm talking about. Overwhelm is one of them. It's stress. And so a big piece of knowing is our conscious mind is where we function, right? Our subconscious mind is also always functioning, but we're not really aware of it. It does behind the scenes. So if you think about it like a computer, you've got the front of what you're looking at of the windows, and then you've got all the rest of the data in the subconscious mind. Mm-hmm. Now, knowing, if you look at the windows, you can only pay attention to a couple of them. And truly, you can only pay attention to one at a time. You might be able to go back and forth, but only one is really catching your whole attention. Then you're fully invested. The same thing with all these various activities. Your conscious mind can only hold about 7 to 9 units of information. People say 70 to 90 or 7 to 9. Either way, it's very small. When you bring up a thought, that thought is tied to sometimes 100 other thoughts. Mm-hmm. So if you bring up a thought and you allow yourself to jot it down, so in the computer world, you have one window. All the other stuff's going on back here. You bring it forward, that window goes back. You bring new information forward, that window goes back. New information forward. That's the way the conscious and subconscious works. So if you keep looping that, you're automatically going to get exhausted. And so if you allow the information, okay, there's that, let me write it down. Okay, then there's that, let me write it down. There's that, let me write it down. Those little words or those sentences that you have out here can now trigger all those thoughts without them having to be pulled forward. And so you can write them down into this one thing that I thought was a task. That's what
I do all day long.
And the best thing, your mind is this amazing art. It's a space of creativity. So when you keep it clear, when you keep the whiteboard or that sculpture piece cleared off, more can be created. Only it's bigger, like God's information can come down. The universe information can come down. Not these little, I got to remember to do this today.
Right.
And you can use your notes in your phone. You can use any, your calendar. You could write it on paper. Yeah. So any one of these ways helps, and it keeps the stress away because you're not going through that looping process, conscious to subconscious and back again.
Because by what I'm hearing from you is writing it down releases that connection between the subconscious and conscious mind. So if I don't write it down, it's going to still be there, and the subconscious is going to try to get hooked.
Yeah, it's going to keep it needs to remind you. And so it's going to keep bringing it back, because you have this fear of forgetting it. And so the mind in protecting you is going to keep bringing it up. And then there's also, those of us who are over analytical, that's actually a bad habit we can get into by feeling as though we're doing something because we're thinking about it. And so when we get it out of here, we actually stop that process and help us to see, okay, this needs some action. And I like to say that action sparks hope. If we're not taking the action, we start to get depressed and we start to get upset with ourselves, or we start to feel like we're not capable. But when we write it down and we take action steps into that and keep our mind open to those action steps, or maybe we need to keep our mind open to some new help that we need to do those action steps, then we're continuing to move forward.
So good.
Yeah, I like what Barbara was saying. Multitasking is basically impossible. Well, because we can't do any one thing, a bunch of one things at one time. Each one has to catch our attention. We're just popping our attention quickly, which makes us more tired.
So much good stuff. So much good stuff. And
the last piece, though, I did want to mention, knowing you're going through all this stuff is okay. Giving yourself space to create forgiveness, to say something like, oh my gosh, I was doing it like this. I can totally see where I was messing myself up, and I forgive myself. And I love myself anyway. And this is where I get to do it differently. Versus, I can't believe I was doing that. I should have been doing it better. Oh my gosh. And making ourselves wrong. That's also taking away all of our energy. It puts out our flame over and over again.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because especially as I think about our audience, you've listened in to Wow Wednesdays. You're part of our community. You come to, the group coaching calls, all the stuff that we offer. You connect with other amazing, like-minded women and men. And you may think Oh, I should have, like we're shooting on ourselves. I should have known better. I can't believe I've spent the whole afternoon feeling irritated, or can't believe my back hurt for 12 days and I didn't think what was going on emotionally. Like, again, it goes to this culture of positivity and self-development, which can also be self-defeating. And it's really key that we forgive in this moment so that we can begin anew. So let's talk about that a little bit. I know we've been
there's this whole concept about forgiveness that's really incorrect and can rather be harmful, right? Like, they say God forgives and forgets. That's cool. That's God. Right? He knows the whole story before. He knows the whole story now. He knows the whole story after. So we don't have to go into all the details and whatnot. But as a human being, it's important that we realize that forgiveness also means we're setting boundaries. He also is setting boundaries with us. We're just not really thinking of that process. But to do this process on purpose and in a healthy way, we have to see, I am choosing forgiveness as I take whatever you did to me and I give it back to you. You hurt me. I didn't have you hurt me, or maybe I did, but I get to forgive myself and my stuff. You get to handle your stuff. I'm not carrying your stuff. And I'm not going to carry your stuff ever again. I'm choosing to make myself free of that. And that works for ourselves as well. But again, I'm just saying this. The actual practice of it feels so much differently. A lot of times people say, oh, I know, but they don't go through the step-by-step of how to do it. And in the process of doing it and feel that forgiveness process happen.
I would imagine you've read the book Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that process of, I love what you're talking about. Sometimes when we carry hurt or anger or fear or disappointment, we're actually carrying something that is not ours.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful. So I love give it back. I remember when I was going through my divorce, and my ex-husband was a very angry man. And he loved to trigger me, and that would get me angry. And I remember I was sitting in church one day and the priest was talking about anger and the only person it's hurting is you, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I want you to think about that person that you're angry at right now, because it was leading to forgiveness, like forgive them, right? And forgive yourself. Think about that person you're angry at. And I was so angry at my ex-husband, like Steve must have been coming out of my ears and he was speaking right to me, the priest. So I start to think about him. He's like, all right, they're not with you right now, are they, that person? I'm like, no, they're not here. They're off being happy and you're here being miserable. Who's the one that's suffering? You, us being angry, like really learning to process through these and shift and release them is what sets us free. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of times people hear that, but again, they don't know how. Unfortunately, you were able to do that in that moment.
But I was in therapy also, so let's be clear.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Here's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's okay to not know how. A lot of times people get upset with themselves. How could they do it? Well, something happened for them that they were able to find that shift. Like what Peggy's saying, they were able to shift and release it. But if they don't know how, right? And so that's the thing. People often say this comment anymore of, don't worry about the how, it'll just happen. More good advice.
Well, and there's lots of different applications, so I'm not going to go down that path. And because we can look at the how in lots of different ways. Go ahead.
Yeah. In as far as being able to understand how to release this and go through this, taking these initial steps is good, but having someone walk you through so you actually see, oh, I got it. I can see how to apply this now. Then you know you really have it. You have the how.
And that's why working, with someone such as yourself to see what you can't see. I love the quote that says you can't see the frame when you're in the picture. right? You can't see the label from inside of the jar. And that's where we need each other. We need professionals to guide us. And that's exactly what you do. So we're going to get ready to open up for some questions. So if you have insights, questions, ahas, please, let's go ahead. I'll give you in a moment. I'll let you open up your lines. And when we were preparing for this today, Tammy, you had, well, I have this gift and this and this. So you have a lot of gifts to share. So we can put the link in the chat. Tammy's going to describe those in a moment while I open up people's lines. But we also want to announce the link for them to go to, because we've got several people that are just here with us on the phone. So what are the gifts that you have for our community today?
So the first one is going over the emotions that we were talking about. It's a list that explains the emotions as well as what they are asking for. So like I like to use the analogy of a battery. There's the positive and the negative. But for whatever reason, we decide that the negative's bad and the positive's good. But for a battery, you need both for the flow to happen.
Love that.
And so, yes, this resource helps to be able to take a look at each emotion and understand what it needs. And this is talking about negative emotions because we don't have a problem with the positive ones. And it kind of breaks it down to understand them in brand new ways. It also explains them in a level 1. And when each emotion in level 1 is not addressed, we hit level 2 of frustration. And if that's not addressed, we hit level 3 of depressing it. And so it helps people to understand how to interpret their emotions and what level they're at.
Love it. Love it.
Go ahead. The second one is going to be going over their thoughts and how to break down the thoughts that are going on. And so being able to see, okay, so we're going to break through this negative thinking, being able to address both, not leaving one out there, turning that mess into a message, not just leaving it and ignoring it.
So Tammy, I know you have lots of resources and I want people to access the best of all of you. So let's go ahead and give your website. And I presume some of these forms are available on your website because like I said, there's lots of people, excuse me, on the phone. So we want to just make sure they have a way to get in touch with you.
Sure. So it's SparksHope.Life. And they can also look at the resources. But the best way to reach out to me is going to SparksHope.Life /book-online.
Beautiful. So you're going to go to SparksHope.Life. And when you get to that website, you'll get a pop-up to get this relationship blueprint that she's talking about here. So just go to SparksHope.Life. And then you'll get the blueprint that Tammy was just talking about. And then if you to book a call with her, excuse me, you're going to go to SparksHope.Life /book-online. And that's the best way to get going and have Tammy by your side, which is really huge. So let's go. We've got lots of people in the queue. Dr. Roz, your line is open.
Woo! Can I run and do the Holy Ghost dance and all of that stuff? Tammy, you're loved, appreciated, celebrated, valued, and most cherished. And I almost missed this call because, you know, we have to do the things for ourselves first. So I said, I know when I go to WOW, I'm going to get fed to have energy for the rest of the day. It's like that time lapse of endorphin, you know, our dose, our dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin. So I'm so glad that I came. And one thing I wanted to share this, and I know I'll just make my appointment on Book Online because I was born happy. I know that. My mama told me I could look at the pictures, you know, and it just seems like, wow, I mean, Women Prosperity Network has been a blessing for me. And I joined, I think it was 2019, because I remember COVID had not started yet and been caring for a lot of people. But it just seems like a dark cloud is over. And it's like, you know, I'll miss, majority of times if I miss, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I know life is real. And I heard what you said, but I'm like, what's that cognitive part of my thinking to have on my favorite color is orange, those orange boxing gloves to kick it all to the curb, even though you know it's there. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense, you know? So this might, I know it don't tell book Tammy, so I'll book you, but I just wanted to say thank you for this because we had a flood in the house the other day, sewage backup. So when you said boo-boo and the mess, and I had to write to Laura, I literally lived that, you know, but when you go through the physicals, how do you still get through it metaphorically or an analogy? But thank you so much, because I am working on a book, The Reisms of Life. So 3 of those that you have there are just awesome. So thank you for that. I don't want to take up time if that's too long to share, but I had to get that out. So y'all know I have put it in the atmosphere. Just want to be able to still be the happy person, even though you know when there's a cloud. Thank you so much. I yield the mic.
You're very welcome. That's not too long to answer. Ultimately, it's being able to take a look at what's the belief we're making up about that situation, right? So we can look at this and go, oh man, this is a sign from God. You know, he's really bringing the crap into my life so I can clean it up and see where, you know, when I speak to others, let them know I've lived through that crap. Literally.
That was good.
So we could see it as a blessing, or we could see it as, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. One more thing. This is just too much. And then we just put so much heavy burden on our heart and on our bodies, and on our minds. And, you know, we can blame ourselves for what's ever occurred, or we could blame whatever's going on for what's ever occurred. And it could just bring us down in our frequency. We literally are energetic beings. And when we pick whatever thought process we pick, it's going to bring us up or bring us down. And when we want to keep in the happy frequencies, we can bring ourselves up to the happy frequencies, but we also need to clean up what's going on. What painful thoughts need some nurturing? Mm-hmm. What's going on there that's bringing us back to something that we need to pay attention to? Mm-hmm. And so as long as we're doing both, that can really keep us in a space of keeping that declutter out of the way.
So thank you. Pass the offering plate.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing, Dr. Roz, that you spoke about was, you know, this whole piece that we run into, like, why am I having these thoughts? I know better than this, right? Like, I know that I can go through that sometimes as well. Oh, right. I'm human. Just means that there's still some cobwebs that I haven't swept out yet, that I haven't looked at and dusted and cleared.
And catch something, Nancy. Here's the hack or the mind screw, both at the same time. That thought process is part of the old stuff to clean up.
Right.
That thought process of why am I thinking this way? Not even why you thought that way, not the original thought, but judging yourself about why you thought that way is a second level of the same stuff.
Yeah. Oh, that was very good. And it's kind of like when you had those, you were talking about boxing gloves, like you're not punching what's out there, you're punching yourself. Like, what? Right? Really
wow,
good.
Nancy.
100%.
Whoa. Okay. I'll rethink that.
All right, there we go.
Thank you.
And just, you know, I love what Tammy just said. Even that question, why am I thinking that, is another level, another layer of the same old thought pattern. So that's what we want to look at.
Yep. And we can't catch it until somebody's there to tell us that we're doing it. Because we think we're doing something different than that over there.
Yeah. Hey, all y'all, get yourself a session with Tammy, because there are cobwebs, or there's puppy messes, or big floods, or sewage backups. We've all got them. and here's what I like to say about this, or reflect about, is when I look at what's happening in my day-to-day life, if there are experiences that I'm having which are different than what I say I would love to experience, to me, that's an indication that there's something happening that I'm simply not aware of. There's something in the subconscious or in my past that is still vibrating, as in, you know, and that's what there is to clean out. So if there's any mismatch between what you say you want and what you're actually experiencing, this is where the breakthrough with Tammy can really come into play to support you in having more of what you want. Love it. Mary Jane Charles, your line is open.
I want to say thank you. I went through a time when, well, first of all, piggybacking on Roz, I too was a happy kid. I was the youngest of 5, and what Mary Jane wanted, Mary Jane pretty much got. There was always someone to pick me up, tease me, etc. I had a happy childhood. And so then later in life, much later, second tragedy, I married somebody who had no faults, or so he thought. And you don't notice it at first. You think they too are a happy-go-lucky person. After the marriage, I could see things that I didn't know about, and it got darker and darker. And being a good Catholic girl, I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And something's not happening, or things are happening. I knew better. I could feel it in my body, certain tones of voice. I was like this, and it's a heck of a thing to have your 14-year-old son walk in and say, you've changed. You're like a Stepford wife. And I didn't freeze. I looked at him and I affirmed that. I said, I know. And he was hands up and back down in like a little apartment in the basement. Bottom line, I looked up abuse. I wouldn't have known it if I fell over it, but I looked up verbal abuse, and I took one of those quizzes, how many out of 20? I had 18 out of 20. And that's how I learned all about dry drunk and narcissism. And so working this in, what did I need to rethink? How could I revive? Where is Mary Jane, the old one, in the picture? And the rest is history. But it's a heck of a thing to be in the middle of it and watch this person. Once you have a label, the label was wonderful to know I didn't cause it and I couldn't fix it. So once you get out from underneath the rubble of mea culpa, it's not your fault. Go be a happy kid. And in any man's religion and in any woman's world, get the hell out is the bottom line. It was a life lesson, and it's something to see it in motion. And I wish I'd known you 15 years ago, but here I am to say thank you for putting it in writing. And it's some stuff you need to recoup. Not everybody had a happy childhood, obviously, to fall back on. But boy, that's where happy childhoods come in. They sustain you.
Yeah, 100%. And going through foster care and meeting a lot of children who didn't have that. It was what made a difference for some of us versus others is other people got involved and other people supported and other people loved and other people cared and let us know we were important. And the ones who had that really pulled through in a much healthier way. Now, there were others who wouldn't allow it. They refused it. They didn't feel they deserved it. But those of us who allowed it, our lives were very different. So it's really great. And I love that you were able to get out of that and learn more about it. And there's some of us, I have clients that I've worked with in their 50s and 60s that they need to be able to know how to find that joy again. And they just don't know how yet. And I'm amazed at the results that they're able to work with people that they love and don't like and do it in a respectful, kind, loving way using these tools. And it sounds like you're doing the same thing and learning from it and just keep taking a look at what might be in the way to have you connect more and more to that joyful Mary Jane. Yeah. And if there's anything that you see is in the way, jot that down. And that's the part to work on.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Thank you,
Mary Jane.
Yep.
Appreciate you. And one day we'll have a conversation because I didn't realize how similar our stories were. So we'll talk. All right. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Go to SparksHope.Life, SparksHope.Life, and get the blueprint from Tammy, as well as you can book online with her. by going to SparksHope.Life/book online. And I've put those links for you in the chat and in the comments on Facebook. So if you're with us on Facebook and you would like to ask a question, feel free to just post it in the comments. If you're here with us on Zoom, you can raise your hand or hit *6 on your phone and we'll take your question. Next person I see that's unmuted is Adele Alexander.
Hello, Tammy and
Hello,
Nancy. It's good to hear you this morning. I had an experience that just made me so angry. I didn't know what to do with myself. And then it reminded me of a similar experience I had had several years earlier. I took a friend who doesn't drive to the store with me. She refuses to carry her cell phone, so you can't call her to say it's time to leave or whatever. So we went in there and I said, just a half an hour, because I needed to be at another event, just a half an hour. I just came in to pick up my scripts and one or two other things, and then I was leaving. So I did that. I had to wait at the pharmacy, blah, blah, blah. Half an hour later, I leave. I'm sitting in my car for over a half an hour, and I need to leave to go to this other event that was important to me. And I couldn't just leave her there, or at least I didn't think I could leave her there. And so I had to go back into the store and have her paged because, of course, she doesn't have her cell phone. So I'm walking around checking to see if she's in one of the checkout lines. And one of the cashiers, yelled my name and I saw her there. But then I said to her, I've been sitting in my car for a half an hour waiting for you. And then it took her another 20 minutes to check out because she doesn't know how to use self-checkout. She's a little bit older than me. And so I had to take her to the checkout and check her out. So now I'm seething because I missed my other event. It's too late to really go there because it's now quite a bit later. And then it reminded me of another time that the same thing had happened where I was waiting for a neighbor and she disappeared on me and I couldn't find her and we had to leave to go to somewhere. So I'm getting angry just thinking about it right now because it's just, I don't know how to deal with this to make it not happen again. That's the thing that's important to me.
All right, there we go.
I don't want this to happen again in any version. How do I set limits to make it not happen again?
My mind is going in different directions, so I'm going to kind of catch me up there. So first of all, this is a pattern. So we would take a look at, there's most likely a subconscious belief. Whenever we have a pattern, there's beliefs that are running it. And so being able to take a look at what's the belief, and I wouldn't know until I ask you some personal questions, but some questions you could ask yourself is, what do I believe? Is it something like I can't trust people? People are going to take advantage of me. I can't say no. I'm not good at setting boundaries. Any one of those or all of those. We would take a look at that belief and we would also allow yourself to begin replacing it with, I can set boundaries and here's how. So using this specific example of, let's say her name is June. So June, I have to leave by this time. If you can't be ready by that time, I can't take you right now. And if she does it once, I already mentioned to you, I couldn't do this because you've done this. I'm not going to be able to take you to anything moving forward if you can't keep your word about your time. So it's being able to do it in a loving, kind way. And some people need a more gentle way of saying things. Some people need a more firm way of saying things. So it would also be knowing the personality of your friend. And seeing how they're responsive, then you would tell me, well, I think this is what they're going to say. And then we would role play that with the boundaries list and the emotions list. So you can have it to where you have a variety of options of what you think. So your subconscious mind is calm and cool and relaxed as much as it can be. Because, right, we have our natural angst of going to have a conversation. But it's like, okay, I feel a little nervous, but I have this tool and I have this tool and I have this tool and I know I'm going to respond well. And so it helps you set up boundaries within your practice, in your own mind and in your own being, in your own subconscious mind, removing limiting beliefs that you've got going on. But the issue is you don't even know what they are yet because there's even more underneath what you know you have. And you might not even have thought them until I mentioned them to you. So it's that process of doing that, then practicing it out, then actually going to do it, seeing what your results are, seeing what works, and we compound on that, and then seeing what doesn't work, and then we work on that. And being able to say to a person, I'm working this out, and so I'm not exactly sure we're at the best stage. So let's come back to another conversation about this.
Yeah.
A lot of times people think the one conversation is it's the end. But it's a relationship.
Right.
And it sounds like this pattern is more so something that you're creating versus what they're creating. They're just falling into play into whatever this is. And so it would be good to get that cleaned up so you don't have that, because it's going to reinforce I'm not good enough. It's going to reinforce people don't care about me. It's going to reinforce that you can't get your needs met. And that's not good for you.
Yeah. For me, one of the things that bothers me, this has happened, there's another person in my life, the same kind of thing, just testing the boundaries constantly. And I find the hard part is I feel like, I'm not listened to, that they're not listening to the fact that I need to go somewhere or I need a different kind of
Adele,
limit. Yeah.
So Adele, first of all, I want to thank you for sharing this experience you're having, because you're not the only one going through something like this.
I know that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I highly, highly recommend go ahead and get yourself booked for a session, because it's more detailed to be able to uncover what your specific beliefs and thoughts are around this, so that you have the opportunity to look at them and clean it up. All right, my friend?
Yes, that sounds like a good idea.
Thank you for joining us today and for sharing and voicing what so many are experiencing. You're a treasure, Adele.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy and Tammy.
You're welcome.
All right, let's do our next caller. And once again, to book your session complimentary with Tammy, what a gift. Plus, she's got all kinds of resources on her website. Go to SparksHope.Life to get the resources, and then to book with her, SparksHope.Life/book-online. Let me go ahead and open up for Barbara, the heart-centered accountant. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. So I think I understand. Okay, I don't know. Okay, let's try this again.
Yeah,
I know I get migraines due to stress. I don't get them very often. I deal with stress in my mind. I deal with stress very, very well. I can go through a tax season, work 80 hours a week, have no problems, no issues. However, like right now, I've got a migraine, and I know, I don't even know what stress caused it. I just know I get stressed, I deal with it, and then somehow I get a migraine. And then until I actually step away from everything for, I don't know, about 24 hours, the migraine doesn't go away, type of thing. Do you teach people how to pay attention and figure out things like that? I mean, I know it's stress. I just can't figure out where it started so that I could cut it off before I get the migraine. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I have clients with different issues, back pains, neck pain. Also sometimes with cancers and different diseases that they're wanting to help heal. So, I mean, this kind of work works with anything going on in the mind and in the body. So ultimately, yes, it would be to take a look at what's going on, and quite possibly it's something building up. And so then it's more subtle. Quite possibly there's not enough you time. It just depends on what's going on. There's some things that you might feel so comfortable with that would stress out another person, but then it's one thing, somebody said this or did that, or you saw this or this happened, and that just totally took you in a different direction. So we would take a look at what's like the pattern of it. How often is it happening? And when you say you have to take 24 hours, what are you doing with that 24 hours? That's different than what you were doing before. And you just kind of break it down and start to see what the body's asking for and what it's missing.
Okay, but it is something you work with. I don't want to.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And just one additional thing popped in my mind as you were sharing. And when I heard you say, I deal with stress really well, maybe there's these little micro stressors, and maybe you're just putting fresh newspaper down as opposed to actually processing the stress. So it could be, you got a big pile of newspaper over newspaper, and these little micro stressors, they'll just go build it. Oh my God, I can't take it in. Like the straw that broke.
That's what I was thinking might have it be. Yeah.
Yeah. So notice, do what Tammy recommended earlier. When you feel stress, when you feel that emotion, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What's it from? Like, just if you can pause rather than cover up the stress, something like that. And then she'll give you tons more when you meet with her. This is just a thought.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome. You're welcome. All right, my friends, we are having a rich and robust conversation with Tammy Workman Lopez, and go to her website, SparksHope.Life. Gets free resources. Also, you can book a complimentary session with her by going to SparksHope.Life/book-online. We're about to wrap up, so I could have time for one more caller. If you'd like to ask a question of Tammy today, just hit *6 on your phone or raise your hand if you're on the computer. And I see that area code 917, Nancy Abramson, is that you?
Oh.
No, I guess it's not.
It actually is, and I didn't realize that I had muted on my phone and didn't mute there. But
perfect.
I just want to say, congratulations, Tammy. This was really great. Thank you for making such a difference to so many. Good job. Oh, and also just to let you know, I sent you an email. If you click the link, we end up getting a different document. So you might want to just fix that.
Oh, okay. Thank you, guys.
All right. Great.
And thank you, Nancy. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. All right, everyone. We are happy. Oh, did you have a question?
I would just wanted to say, it's Tiffany. I wanted to just say that I'm really excited about meeting you on tomorrow. I already set my appointment, but I did have one question. I know for me, when I was doing my work, similar to you, Nancy, going through the whole divorce situation, emotions all over the place, I went through some personal development courses and have continued with the group that I'm with. They're very big on saying that, books and sometimes one-on-one aren't really efficient, and just trying to figure out the best method. That's why I'm looking forward. I am open to meeting with you, because we've been taught that it's got to be in small experiential blurbs, like controlled circumstances, versus actually coming and just speaking to somebody, for like 30 minutes or an hour and then going back into your life. And I'm just wanting to know, like, how do you believe your actual methodology actually works best for people that are, I've done a lot of work, but I also know that I can step into that victim mode sometimes, and rather than being, responsive, go into a place of reactionary when I'm back in that same space with that individual, because I have children with them, so I still have to actually be in an environment with them sometimes, and those same triggers come up. I'm conscious that my stomach is my spot. When you talked about the spark in your stomach, I know I get that anytime I'm around them, because it was a very abusive situation. Anytime the abuse was about to happen, I'd get that feeling that I want to run, but I couldn't run because the kids were there. And now the kids are grown, and I'm still getting that feeling. So I would just love to know, like, what do you believe is going to be, how are we going to work this out over the phone or Zoom? I've never done it this way. So I'm just looking forward to it, but I'm also wondering.
That's actually a really good question. I have myself done a lot of work as well. And there are times when I just would leave a session and feel like I just sort of rehashed everything. I don't feel any better. I don't have any results. I feel like this was a waste of time, and I'm pissed. And I've spent a lot of sessions like that. I've done different therapies and different therapists and different modalities. And so this was also my own personal journey. And that's why I did this work the way I do it. I implement the how all throughout. And you're going to be practicing, and you're going to be talking to me about what has worked and what hasn't worked. And we're going to, okay, so what if you had tried this in that situation? How do you feel now? Okay, well, that feels a lot better. That feels more safe, more online. That feels really good. Or, no, I've actually tried that. That didn't really work at all. It actually created this. And then we take a look and go, okay, so how did you present it? How was your tone? And so we're able to take a look at everything. So when you go back and try it again, you feel like you've got the tools, you feel like you've got the practice. I don't want you leaving out of a session from me without having tools you're going to be practicing at home. So you're not just coming to talk to me. That's boring, right? You're coming to get action steps. You're coming to get a plan. And I want to hear what worked. Cool. And celebrate with you. And I want to hear what doesn't work. Cool. That tells us what we need to work on. And so you're going to guide me. I like to say I'm the GPS and you're the driver. You're going to be driving and I'm going to be giving you the way to go. But you might say, oh, we tried that way and there was an obstacle there. And to the point of I've even had some clients bring their spouse to the call so I can break it down for the spouse. And if the spouse is open, and this is exes as well, and children, and in any regard, I've done every family dynamic you could think of. Some of it's been pretty amazing. It's all been amazing, but some of it's been just like mind blowing. I had an extended family of 20 once.
That's beautiful.
So that's how I know this will work for you, because we're going to do everything we need to make sure it works for you and you get the results no matter what, because that's the way this is set up.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Praise God. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thanks for being with us today, and kudos to you for going ahead and booking your session with Tammy. It's an amazing gift that she's offered everyone to book with her, as well as all the golden nuggets and practical ways you've supported us today. So thank you so much, Tammy. It's been a pleasure to have you on Wow Wednesday.
Thank you so much for having me. I love you guys so much.
We love you right back, and that's how it works. So to all of our listeners, thank you for joining us for Wow Wednesday. We'll be back next week with another wonderful conversation to support you in living and enjoying your best life. Be sure to keep an eye on your emails and also in our Facebook group for the 3-part videos and steps I'm going to offer you so that you can set yourself up for success to level up and enjoy 2023 and beyond. So until then, have an amazing day. Get out there. Remember, it's Wow Wednesday. Bye, everyone. Bye, Tammy.
Big squishy hugs. Bye.
Like that, squishy hugs.